Well, the Big Ten stepped forward and made a rule change for college football. So, of course, all the other conferences had to follow suit. Plus, week 0 is here and a Big Ten team is involved. And, of course, I'm here to talk Indiana's win total. All that and more on today's episode of a Locked On Big Ten Squad.
You're talking ball with the Big Ten Squad. From USC to Ohio State, from Michigan to Oregon, from Nebraska to Washington, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming Big Ten weekend. No hurt feelings and thin skin allowed. Squad up, you're part of the Big Ten Squad.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Big Ten Squad. I'm Jacob Goins, host of Locked On Hoosiers, filling in for Spencer McLaughlin, who yet again just conveniently decided to back out of this week's show. Trent Condon of Locked On Hawkeyes is here. Zach Anderson-Yoxheimer from Locked On UCLA is here, and Isaiah Hull from Locked On Wolverines. I believe Craig Sheeman of Locked On Big Ten will be here literally any minute, and we need to get his thoughts and all of our thoughts because, gentlemen, the Big Ten yet again proved why it's the best conference in college football. With all the madness of the NFL players trying to return to our sport, the Big Ten and Tony Petitti stepped forward and said, you don't belong here. We don't want you. You are not playing in our league. Trent, I want to start with you, my friend. Your thoughts on the Big Ten making this rule change and then ultimately all the other conferences following behind.
Well, it shouldn't come as a surprise. As we have found out here and we are continuing to learn, the Big Ten has to be the adult in the room. There have to be the ones that come up with the ideas that make sense for everybody in college football. Everything is so insular in the SEC, and though they want to be the power conference up there, the 3 consecutive national championships, what we saw in the hardwood a year ago, the Big Ten continues to be the front runner when it comes to college athletics and what they do time in and time out. So I'm happy to see this from the Big Ten, though it could have been an impact. There was a lot of speculation in Iowa. Aaron Graves, second team all Big Ten, and the biggest question mark for Iowa this year is defensive tackle. Maybe a hope if he got cut for the Ravens, he'd come back. The Big Ten did the right thing, even if it impacts us negatively. I know, Jacob, you talk about that with the Indiana side, but still, it's the right thing for college athletics.
Well, there is Craig Sheeman of Locked On Big Ten, and you know what we're talking about, my friend. It's our conference stepping forward. Tony Petitti did such a good job. He got a contract extension this week because of the rule change that they made. You are our conference representative, so lay it all out for us. Your thoughts on the Big Ten stepping forward, being the adult in the room, like Trent said, and laying down the law about NFL players.
Well, that was really interesting at first because the news going into the other day was that the SEC was going to convene and talk about what they were going to do.
They released a statement, Craig, a whole statement.
And then the next day we get up and boom, law of the land, a unanimous vote in the Big Ten. And look, that was a risky move to be the first one because, all right, what if everybody else didn't follow suit and they start using these players against you in playoff games and whatnot. So, that was a pretty big move. Now, I'll be honest. I like to get into the weeds of all the topics. I'm pretty conversant with the Save College Sports Act and all the stuff in the House settlement. I still don't have a good explanation as to what is the difference between these players. I still don't know why Kellen Wyatt and Stephen Daly are waiting for some in-state injunction to be able to play while all these other fifth-year seniors are able to play if they can find a home. We know it won't be in the Big Ten or the SEC. Jacob, help me out. I don't know the difference between any of these. It's bizarre. Nothing makes sense in this world.
Your guess is as good as mine, man. If anybody else can help out, chime in because I can't keep my head on straight. I was talking before we went on air or started recording, and I was like, man, I can't keep up with it because Indiana football and basketball are dealing with all of this. And Zach Anderson-Yoxheimer of Locked On UCLA, your thoughts on all of this, whether it be the Big Ten making a rule change or all these TROs and injunctions. I mean, what's your legal background? Do you have anything there?
I mean, I do have my degree kind of off to the side. It does not say anything to do with law, so we're going to kind of keep that out of here for now. But it is a little confusing because depending on the state, you're looking at different injunctions, TROs. And if you have the right lawyer, like UCLA's Trent Hendrick did, he went to Louisiana, was part of an injunction that got them to get into the transfer portal, and he was able to come to UCLA. So when this Big Ten news broke out, selfishly, I was like, dang it, the Bruins lost a good one. But technically, based on the rule and based on how he was undrafted, he can come and play at UCLA for now, barring any appeals processes. I think I saw Pete Thamel put that the NCAA's won 3 straight appeals in these different states. So that's something to look out for in terms of what these lawsuits might be happening during the season, prior to the season, and later on in the season. So for me, selfishly, I wanted Hendrick to be eligible. He still is. Probably means that Tyler Bilodeau for UCLA, far gone. No chance he'll leave the NBA to come back to the Bruins basketball front. In terms of the right move, the Big Ten making this first, think about all these things that are going on. We've got CFP expansion talks, all these things. The Big Ten showcase, they're the big boys in the room. They're going to make the noise, and they're going to take and put their foot down and make things happen. I wonder what this looks like for the future of college sports.
Well, it's a good point because I want to bring Isaiah Hull of Locked On Wolverines into this conversation because when the ruling came through and the news broke, right? Again, the SEC released a statement, the Big Ten made a rule change, and then the other power conferences followed suit. My first question, as was most people, was how do you enforce this? And then they came out and said, hey, 6-game suspension for the head coach. We're going to fine your institution, and more could follow if you break that rule. Do you like that, Isaiah? Do you like the harshness of the enforcement of this new rule that the Big Ten and the other power conferences have put in?
I feel like this is like just a continuation of like, hey, screw you, Texas Tech. That's the way I kind of read it. Because it's just is like, hey, stop getting all willy-nilly with everything, right? Like we're going to take this very seriously. At least everything is out on the table right now, right? Like Michigan wasn't really considering anybody, so I hadn't been following it a ton. Sure. There had been some rumors that maybe Ernest Hausman could come back because he was undrafted, unpicked up, didn't end up anywhere. So I don't know if, that could obviously, he still could, but like, he's not at an NFL team, but it's so silly, obviously, like people watching preseason games and like, oh, that guy's just entered the transfer portal. Yeah. So kudos to the Big Ten for getting ahead of it and doing the, like, here's what the consequences are, right? Because like otherwise, like people were just going to do it. It's kind of like what NIL was at the beginning, where it was like, guys, this isn't pay for play. This is name, image, and likeness. If you can have your players in ads, you can do things like that. And because there was no enforcement, everyone was like, oh, that's really cute, and just went ahead and did whatever they wanted. And here we are. So to be ahead of it from a rule standpoint and say, like, here's what the punishment is if you don't follow this rule, and then everyone else is following suit in general, like that's a really good precedent to set if you're the Big Ten.
And I think the ruling and the punishment is harsh enough for most people to stay away from this. Now, Lane Kiffin in the SEC, I don't know what the heck they're going to do, because apparently LSU's presidents and ADs voted for it, but Lane Kiffin, we know he doesn't care what anybody thinks. So surely a 6-game suspension for a head coach is enough for people to stay away from this, right? Craig, we'll end with you. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to mention Isaiah. We've seen coaches be suspended for 6 games and still win a national championship. So that's not that much of a deterrent. Am I correct?
It's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Wow.
It's, sometimes they say it's a, if you have your coach suspended for 6 games, that they're going to win a national.
There's actually direct correlation there, right? What is it?
Yeah.
Correlation isn't causation, or whatever they tried to teach us back in school. So look, at the end of the day, the Big Ten was the one that started this. The Big Ten was the one that saw the problem and solved a problem. And we're not surprised by it. People in the South can't stand it, but the Big Ten did the right thing yet again. And speaking of the Big Ten, and with all of this chaos going on, we have football this weekend, guys. Week 0 is here. A Big Ten school is in action. Plus, we take a little sneak peek ahead to week 1 as well. All of that when we come back on this episode of a Locked On Big Ten Squad. Stick around. This Locked On Big Ten Squad episode is brought to you by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. When workplace chaos hits and you need the right hire, Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps connect employers with candidates who match specific needs like skills, certifications, and location. So less time gets spent searching and more time gets spent finding the right fit. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. In the minute or so that I'm talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So you've probably got that position on your team that needs to be filled. You had somebody leave that was there for 20 years and you don't know how you're going to replace them. You need to be using Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It's the place to go, okay? Because you'll spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes, like less stress, less time, which means more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of all of our shows here on the Locked On Big Ten Squad and all of our respective channels, you're going to get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on these podcasts, okay? Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Gentlemen, I don't know about you, but I'm so tired of talking about legal jargon, legal language, eligibility, ineligibility. How about we talk a little football? Because we finally have games to talk about. Week 0 is here. One team from our conference is playing this weekend, USC hosting San Jose State. And I'm not going to make us all go around and talk about this game in particular because USC, as I'm looking at it, a 39.5 point favorite. But Greg, I want to Thank you, Zach. Are you picking San Jose State? I mean, upset watch this weekend, right? That's what
San
you're
Jose
saying?
State -30. But all jokes aside,
Craig, give us a quick synopsis of what you're looking for, whether it's in the Big Ten or outside of it, because it is week 0 and there's college football on our TV screens this week.
Well, the first couple of things come to mind. It's kind of unique that USC has this game this weekend, and then they follow it up with a Friday night game. So before most of us kick off for our very first game, USC is going to have 2 games under their belt already.
They're going to be 0-2. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I want to ask you guys, when did we collectively as a country decide, like, do we still say week 0? I'm hearing now we call it week 1, but it's a 2-weekend period. Are you guys hearing this? This is the new thing now.
I don't like that. No.
I mean, in high school, it's always week 0, but week 1. So
yeah, I could see like a 0.5 or something. I think week 0 is fine. I don't like it, but I don't think you can have week 1 that spans 2 weeks long on the calendar. That doesn't really add up. That sounds like something the Big 12 came up with.
Well, since when has college football made sense? So I thought I'd throw it out there for discussion.
You're right about that. But if we are looping week 0 and week 1 into the same calendar week, right? We look ahead for all of the Big Ten teams who will be in action. Don't worry, Rutgers plays on a Thursday night against UMass. That'll be exciting. Minnesota, Trent, you want to chime in on Minnesota hosting Eastern Illinois? I'm sure you have some thoughts on that game, huh?
Oh, absolutely. The State Fair game that they play up there every Thursday to kick off the season so people can get to the State Fair and have some corn dogs up there and make fun of Phil Fleck. They're a different crew north of the border. I'll tell you one thing that I actually am intrigued by, though, when you look through kind of the week 1 slate of games, and if we can include those early ones, I do want to see Rutgers. We're going to talk maybe about some teams that we've changed our opinion on. I think that they did enough in the portal, coupled with all the changes they made defensively. We know they got skill position guys. Yeah, they got to find a quarterback. I get that, but is Rutgers going to compete for a conference championship? No, but better than people think. There's something about that Rutgers team. It's UMass. They should throttle them, but it's also that 5:00 game on Thursday. There's something about that in God's country, in time zone here, the central time zone, 5:00 kickoff that we get. There's just something about that first one on that Thursday night that I think is even better than what we get in week 0 most years.
I'm with you on that. And I think a game that I'm excited about getting into week 1, how about Illinois on that Thursday night too, hosting UAB, 4 touchdown favorites, but you never really know. UAB is one of those teams that when you host them, you got to give them your best or they'll show up and sneak up and kind of take advantage of you. We also have 3 games on Friday night. Again, USC will be in that mix. Michigan State with a new era. Purdue. I'm not going to watch that, but Craig, you can if you really want to. But I want to go to a couple of other you guys here. And Trent brought this up, and I think it's a fascinating question. Is there a team that you have changed your opinion on throughout fall camp or over the summer or whatever the case might be? Isaiah, I come to you first. Is there a team in the Big Ten, it could be your own if you want to, that you've changed your opinion about as we are finally getting into the actual season?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm still, like, to talk about Michigan in particular, like I still have Michigan at 9-3, which is what I've had them at for a while here. But at the same time, like, just the things I'm hearing that aren't from like the typical blustery people that are getting to see practice and everything, like this, a lot of those questions have been answered. And I just think Kyle Whittingham, like with some of the things he's been saying about the team, it's like when you're like, yeah, it feels like we're putting it together. Big problem though. We don't really know who the 5th through 7th cornerbacks are. And it's like, Oh, really? That's the problem, huh?
That's a good problem.
So with that, like, the schedule's still tough, but I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan's just a bit better than even I'm anticipating. But to throw it to another team, UCLA honestly is really interesting to me because they've got a tough schedule, of course, but and the cross country trips don't help. But like, I just, if Bob Chesney really gets like the most out of that talent, like that's a talented team. And obviously you got a talented quarterback that just hasn't lived up to expectations. But we've seen guys, once they get the right coaching, because if I sit there and say the same thing of Bryce Underwood, hey, he wasn't getting the right coaching and now he is, it makes me think, what about Nico? Could that actually be a turnaround for him?
Zach, go ahead. You don't get a chance often on this show to hype up your own UCLA Bruins on the football field. So please chime in.
I mean, it goes hand in hand with getting a Sun Belt Conference Defensive Player of the Year, just transferring in right before the season, knows the defense, going to play with some of his teammates, mostly the same coaching staff. So you bring in what would be a top-tier transfer for any other school. You bring him to UCLA, adds depth defensively. I like the point about Nico. This seems like an offense that could be geared towards his strengths and maybe lessening his weaknesses. They brought an NFL quarterback, former NFL quarterback, in Derek Carr to be kind of maybe the QB whisperer to Nico. So there's ways that this could build, but obviously he needs to prove it on the field with things as well. So for me, I would selfishly say UCLA. I don't think that's too much of a homer pick considering they added somebody. Obviously, if the 5 for 5 and things fall through with eligibility, that could change. But I think the Bruins are a good sleeper pick to improve from definitely a year ago and even from spring here into fall.
Is there any concern playing against Cal in Berkeley to open up? That's like a 10:30 Eastern time kick on that Saturday night. Any concern with that game at all?
Oh yeah, that's a huge game. It's clearly the best Big Ten game outside of maybe Wisconsin, Notre Dame in terms of intrigue. I mean, we could argue Oregon, Boise State's fun because of history, but UCLA Cal is one of the more important games that could define the depth of the conference. Cal is easily one of those sleeper West Coast teams that could take off with Tosh Lupoy. UCLA's the same. They've been in recruiting wars this whole offseason. Trent Hendrick being one of them earlier this weekend. So that's, I think, the best game of the week 1, week 0 slate. So I am scared, but I think that's what makes week 1 fun. I'd rather have a scary game to get into the season than a boring cupcake right away. Let's wait for week 2 for that.
Yeah, imagine having boring cupcake games to start your season. That'd be crazy. Trent, you brought up the topic. So a team maybe outside of Iowa that you have changed your opinion on, positive or negatively.
Yeah, I mentioned Rutgers as one of them. The other one is Nebraska. And just hearing some things from over there, this is an optimistic bunch. Another one of our border rivals over there. A lot of the people my age, they remember the 90s and the national power that they were and thinking they were going to get back. Boy, I have felt a whole lot of, maybe it's just inevitable. This is what we are, and it's a program that can't get over the hump. You lose one of your own that leads to your program in Raiola. And Matt Rule, a lot of people love the hire. It obviously has not translated. The end of the schedule is an absolute bear for them. And if they don't get off to a good start, a real good start, I think things could get really ugly really quickly over in Lincoln.
Go ahead, Craig. I know you've got thoughts on those teams and probably one or two more in our conference as we continue looking week 0, week 1, and then we kind of get to Indiana's win total.
Well, all I've heard all week long are two things: is that Josh Hoover is better than Fernando Mendoza, and Bryce Underwood is clicked. It's Isaiah. I don't know. I all of a sudden it's happening. I'm hearing wonderful things down there or up there in Ann Arbor. So look, I made a bold statement on the show last week that I thought, hey, Indiana could actually be better. I don't know if it pans out record wise, but they could be better than they were last year if Josh Hoover is ahead of Fernando Mendoza's pace this time last year coming out of Cal. And if Bryce Underwood really does step up and deliver, then yeah, Michigan's going to be a problem for some people. So those are the two teams I'd keep an eye on. We're probably going to be looking at Indiana anyway, but yeah, we'll see if Michigan can sneak up in there this year.
Well, we are going to be looking at Indiana in the next minute or so when we talk about the Hoosiers win total. We've gone through 17 other teams in this conference, and it's time to talk about the defending national champions. 10.5 is the win total on FanDuel. We make our picks for the Hoosiers next. This Locked On Big Ten Squad is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with Daily Dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. And best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with every day's game. So whether you're following your favorite team or you're keeping an eye on matchups across the league, every game has someone capable of going deep. And now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. And obviously, we're talking a lot of college football on today's show, but we're really in the heart of the Major League Baseball season, coming down the home stretch, playoffs right around the corner. You got to get involved with Daily Dingers on FanDuel. It just takes it to the next level when you're watching those games. And so if you're ready to play your game today, join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. Oh, I've been waiting on this for months, literally months. We finally get to talk Indiana's win total. And it's no surprise that Spencer dipped out today. Roman didn't show up. Ryan's not here. Nick is, I don't even know. He's probably, crying somewhere that we're talking about Indiana and a possible national championship defense. But 10.5 is the total and the final team that we need to talk about on our show. Craig, would you like to start us off as an IU grad, or do you want me to come back to you to where you and I can hit them both right with 2 punches and tell them why Indiana wins it all? You tell me, my friends.
Just like Curt Cignetti in his first press conference and his first pep rally at an Indiana basketball game, I'm going to go first and set the tone and the expectation early on.
Boom. I
think this is an 11-win team. I think I would take the over. They go 12-0, 11-1. They're going to be 6-0 going into that Ohio State game. It's at Indiana. Interesting letdown spot the next week. You go into a big emotional game, but of Ohio State, and then you got to go to the Big House the following week. That's a possible trip up. Should be able to handle Minnesota going to the bye week. USC's at home. They can get that. I think that game at Washington could be tricky. That's a tough trip for everybody to go out there.
Yep.
But yeah, I'll take the over comfortably at 10.5, ladies and gentlemen.
One lost team are the Indiana Hoosiers. Trent, do you agree or disagree? Where could you see some possible hiccups for the Hoosiers on that schedule in 2026?
I think this is the most difficult one because the way that I like to look at things is starting with things like turnover margin. They only lost 1 fumble all season long. Well, they did it also the year previous. I don't know if Cignetti, if he's got a voodoo curse or what's going on, but to do it 2 consecutive, you're right, yeah. Whatever it is. So if you go down that road, well, okay, well, they just have something that it works out with. They won so many close games. Iowa completes a screen pass. The Hawkeyes beat them. You don't have a ridiculous toe tap in the back of the end zone. Penn State beats them. Mendoza doesn't bully his way in. They lose to Miami. There were so many of those opportunities, and everyone broke their way. Everything from the betting side of things, and that's what we're talking about here. The way that I handicap things says go under, but it's Curt Cignetti time in and time out. And I just don't want to bet against this guy. Begrudgingly, I'm going to go over as well, even though my betting mind says that I'm an idiot for doing it.
I love it. Thank you, Trent, so much. I'm glad my payment to you came through before the show began. Zach Anderson, Yoxheimer, you and Trent are 2 teams, or your teams, who are not on the schedule this year. UCLA has a tough enough schedule as it is. 10.5 with our friends over at FanDuel. Do you like Indiana to go over, or do they trip up a couple of times on this schedule?
I mean, that 4-game and 6-week schedule, right? You got what's currently number 1 Ohio State at home, a top 15 Michigan team that could be much higher ranked at that point in Ann Arbor, a bye, you host Minnesota, then you host Minnesota, then a bye, host USC, go to Washington. That's a tough schedule. I would have thought USC might give them more of a game later in the year, but with an Indiana bye before that, I think there's no chance they lose that. I'm going to go over. Obviously, there's a chance they could slip up a couple of games here and there, as Trent mentioned, with turnover margin and things that just don't go their way. But Curt Cignetti just has this swagger. Obviously, UCLA got punched first in this Big Ten bulldozer a long time ago, and Indiana hasn't stopped since. So I can't bet against them. Remember, we talked a long time ago. Jake was like, oh, it's Indiana. And, I'm just going to cower in the corner and wait till Bob Chesney brings the Bruins up.
That's right. Hey, man, lesson learned for those out in Los Angeles. Isaiah Ho, apologies, of Locked On Wolverines. I'm with everybody else. The Michigan game scares the crap out of me as the host of Locked On Hoosiers because it's just in a bad spot on this schedule, man. If it was like the 2nd or 3rd game of the Big Ten schedule, even if it was in November, I'd be okay. But this one being after Ohio State, late in October, Michigan's probably rolling at this point. That game scares me to death. But your overall thoughts on Indiana's roster, schedule, and over-under of 10.5 wins?
Well, it really is a 2-game season for Indiana. When you look at that schedule, like Indiana's talented enough and coached well enough at this point that you look at it and you say they should beat every team on that list other than Ohio State and Michigan. Per se. I'm not saying that they shouldn't beat Ohio State or Michigan. I'm just saying like every other game is like you click and say either likely win or absolute win. So then if you had it reversed, really it's simply just, it's not because I cover Michigan. It's not because there's a block M behind me. This has been kind of the prediction. It also is hinging on what Michigan does early in the season, right? Michigan, if it has the confidence of either beating Oklahoma at home in week 2 or being close and then winning all the games up until then, I think because that is so late in the time of the year, right? Because you don't have that bye week until the fact that you have to go, all of these games, get 2 road games and then host Ohio State and then go back on the road to Michigan where not Bob. Where am I at? Who am I? I don't even know. Kurt Signetti, Bob Signetti. We all know Bob Signetti, right?
Yeah, his long lost brother, right?
Yeah. So Kurt Signetti is taking his team to the big house for the first time, and Michigan plays a similar brand of football and certainly will under Kyle Whittingham. So I'm definitely taking the over. It's just a question of can they get through that Michigan game? I don't know. Like I don't know if Michigan will be up to it or not, and I think though. They'll get past Ohio State, and then if they are going to let one down, it is that one.
Yeah, I think that is spot on. And look, I think there is a realistic world where Indiana's 10-2, which would be going under the 10.5 win total. But that doesn't mean the season's a failure. Indiana would still make the college football playoff. They would probably avoid the Big Ten championship game and be healthier and better because of it and could still defend their national title. But Kurt Signetti doesn't roll that way. And both coordinators are back this season. Yes, Trent, you want to chime in on this?
You mentioned 10-2. They make the college football playoff. What if those 2 losses come, though, at the hands of Ohio State and Michigan and say they're battling another 10-2 team from the SEC? We know the narrative that is out there with that joke of a non-conference schedule. The only meat of the schedule they'd have is a road win against Washington. We'll see what the Huskies look like. I'm not so sure at 10-2 with the losses against the old Big 2 of the Big Ten, if that would be enough. Again, it's dependent. It's in a vacuum, but don't put that one down in pen because we don't know what's happening across the country. We know how narratives go. Iowa dealt with that in their 12-0 year, the negative narratives that are out there. And the SEC honks are going to be coming 10-2 with 2 losses to the Buckeyes and Wolverines.
No, and you can't forget about Notre Dame either, right? Don't they have that inclusion of the clause this year? If they're that team in, they get in.
Yeah, don't get me started on Notre Dame. Don't get me started on that. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point because your best wins for Indiana would be at Nebraska, which who knows what Nebraska. If Nebraska's a 9-win team, that's one thing. But if they're a 7-win team, then that's another thing. USC and Washington. Would that be enough for a 10-2 Indiana? I personally think so. But again, the term depends is a huge point there. But look, I think Indiana is an 11-win football team. I think they do slip up at either Michigan or Washington. Both of those road games scare me, but Kurt Signetti is yet to lose a home game as the head coach of the Hoosiers. I don't think it starts this year. So we've all got Indiana going over. That would put them back in Indianapolis more likely as a Big Ten championship game representative and one of the top seeds in the college football playoff. So this has been awesome. This has been fun. And we finally have college football games to talk about. And we'll get to do that next week on the Locked On Big Ten Squad. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers, Craig Sheeman of Locked On Big 10, Trent Condon of Locked On Hawkeyes, Zach Anderson Yoxheimer, Locked On UCLA, and Isaiah Hull of Locked On Wolverines. We are back next week for more awesome content. So until then, Big Ten fans, stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.